Okay, seam allowance is not just extra fabric. It is future planning. What seam allowance does? Seam allowance affects fit. It allows what? The alterations, affect finishing quality, too little, but for wrong seam allowance choices. Okay, seam allowance is not just extra fabric. It is future planning. What seam allowance does? Seam allowance affects fit. It allows what? The alterations, affect finishing quality, too little or too much can ruin a garment. When the allowance here is too small, and you have to, when it is needed here to open the one of the line up, but the allowance you left is too small, that can ruin a dress or a top. When it's too much here, it can be bulky. Okay, so why the seam allowance is important? When wrong seam allowance leads to what? Tight garments, bulky seams, inability to alter later. Right? Professionals plan ahead. I have to leave 2 inches here in case you can easily cut it off if you don't want later on. But always leave. If you watch my videos, I always, oh, I want allowance here. I can easily cut it out later if I don't want, which is much easier for me to make it exactly the measurement. Waist and hip alteration space. Okay, those are the parts affected: the bust adjustment room and the shoulders, which is clean finishing. So common mistakes in this area is cutting too narrow, inconsistent allowance, and not allowing for future changes. Maybe the person is now, I wanted to adjust it, it's tight, but there's no allowance inside. But when there is allowance, it's easy for you to open it up. Okay, leave room where adjustments may be needed.